Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Wendy Jo, and this is Ashley.
Hey, Wendy, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. I've been doing a little extra relaxation and mindfulness work myself, trying to reduce some stress. And that really leads into this show we're doing today, which is about reducing stress and using your vagus nerve to help you to do that, to get out of fight or flight. I had a great interview with Jim Hale about his experiences. So what do you know about the vagus nerve? Because you're a nurse, right? And I wonder if in nursing school they teach you anything about using the vagus nerve to relax.
So, yeah, they do teach us, but to be honest with you, I really don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know that there are certain things that we have done to stimulate it, but the only way that I'm familiar with stimulating the vagus nerve is through like manual touch.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it can be accessed in the rectum if you needed to access the vagus nerve for emergent situations.
Okay, right. So that's like in a medical emergency, right?
Yeah.
So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. Like it really goes through your whole body. It's a cranial nerve, and there is, I forgot about that, but that is true. You said to me when we were preparing, there's one way that I noticed him.
No.
Well, apparently, so it's become a really popular topic lately. We have lots of people who have been in stress response now for a long time, sort of post-pandemic. We have people who really all suffered a big trauma on top of the fact that something like 1 in 6 people have suffered major trauma in their life anyway, right? And that's probably even higher than that statistically. Not everybody reports their trauma, right? So I think it's become kind of a hot topic because of that, because when you stimulate it, and there's lots of different ways besides that way, including like taking a cold shower, chewing on gum and mints, and or eating a popsicle, you get the cold and the mouth stimulation at the same time.
When's the last time you had a popsicle?
Well, because I had neck surgery, I actually have had them recently, but normally not so much, Yeah.
Well, I was going to say adults really don't seek popsicles,
Mm-hmm.
but I have 2 young kids at home, and every summer they love popsicles. They will run me ragged over a popsicle. And so, but every once in a while, that popsicle looks so good, and it is the best experience to just sit there with it.
It is. And really, probably what's happening is you're stimulating your vagus nerve and relaxing,
Yeah.
because it takes you out of that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response and into the rest and refresh response of your parasympathetic system. So, yeah, grab a popsicle. It's good for you.
Wow, that's something new today.
Yeah, and also sleeping on your right side is really good for the vagus nerve. I mean, so there's lots of ways that you can stimulate it, and that are really simple, and things you can add to your routine. The other thing is just massaging around your upper trapezius and around your neck will stimulate it as well.
Wow, and that's my favorite part to do Reiki on. So if head, heart, and then I'll do my back. If I can't do nothing else, I feel like I'm in a rush. That's what I do, and the back always feels so good to me.
Yeah, yeah, you're inducing that relaxation response. So why is this important to spirituality, right? If you think about it, if we're really in that stress response, probably the last thing that we're doing is opening up spiritually, because the brain chatter, the increased heart rate, all of that, muscle tone tightening, we're not opening up to spirit. We're just trying to get through, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because part of spiritual growth, especially here on the physical plane, is required of us to find balance in interacting with the external world and being within in the internal world. And the way that we cultivate our humans as we build them up, whatever ladder we're building them up on, we hyper focus on the external reality as if that's only what's so. And so it takes more work to learn about the internal and to shut off the brain chatter and shut off the things that we've been taught that innately since we were childhood, the inner child work that we talk about, that's all part of, things that have been predisposed onto us as
Mhm.
opposed to what we are internally. So this is dope. This is dope.
Yeah, it definitely is. And coming up next, my interview with U.S. veteran Jim Hale. Hey there, Wendy Jo from the Grow podcast. So, do you suffer from chronic illnesses such as fibromyalgia, COPD, psoriatic arthritis, myasthenia gravis, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain syndrome? It's really hard to focus on your spirituality when you're suffering from a chronic illness. But there are so many tools out there today. Things like working on your vagus nerve, mindfulness, meditation, biofeedback, herbal treatments. There are so many things that can help so that you can put the symptoms to the side and focus on stepping into the light and growing yourself. I know it makes me feel better. I know you can do it too. I believe in you. Joining me now is disabled veteran and natural health proponent Jim Hale. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. It's morning right now when we're talking.
It is. It is. Mornings are not my friend. I'll tell you that. But I'm really glad to see you.
Yes, it's been a while.
It has. And I love our conversations because we've talked in the past about, access for veterans to some really important services that they don't always have access to. I know that you have shared in the past that you have PTSD, anxiety issues. So I think this is an important conversation because on this show today, we're talking about how when you have issues like anxiety, PTSD, depression, how hard it is how it affects your well-being and how hard it is then to access your spirituality,
Anxiety, trauma, it attacks your spirituality, it attacks your nervous system, it attacks your body. It can destroy a person.
Right. And
but
so
fortunately there are ways of overcoming.
Right. Right. And I love it that you explore all different avenues for yourself and then you share it with others. That's really important. So I made a post on social media about the vagus nerve, and you responded to that, which is what prompted this interview. And I just want to read what you said. So you said a clinician outside the VA introduced me to biofeedback, and she taught me how to quiet the part of my brain where PTSD lives. And so when you say biofeedback for our listeners and viewers, what does that mean exactly?
With biofeedback can be done in at least 3 different ways that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of the mood rings.
Yeah.
What a mood ring is, right? It'll change color depending on your mood.
Right.
So there's you can touch a certain, a sensitive thing like a mood ring or a piece of paper with a dot on it, and it picks up your temperature, and it will change color and tell you if you have anxiety or if you're calm and in the green. The other way is on a computer with the software.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lead that comes from the computer. It goes to your ear, clips on your ear, takes your pulse, and the software analyzes your pulse and your heart rate variability. you'd think that a perfectly regular heartbeat is optimal, but it's not.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't, if someone has a pacemaker, they can still use biofeedback to do what I did for
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
You can still get results from it, but your heart rate variability is not going to show up on the
Sure.
software
Mm-hmm.
because there's the electronics is making it a regular beat. But when you get into the zone, when you're clear and you're in a good place, you will have one heartbeat will be like 0.75 from the last one. The
Mm-hmm.
next one might be 0.89 seconds from the previous, and that's the heart rate variability,
Mm-hmm.
HRV. A
Okay.
smart a smart bed will tell you how your HRV is.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
So what she did, like she hooked me up and she told me, okay, breathing is a big part of it. The long,
Mm-hmm.
slow exhale.
Mm-hmm.
It's built into your body. You always have access to it.
Right. Your
So,
parasympathetic nervous system gets
yes,
triggered. Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
The parasympathetic.
Rest and refresh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I learned about that. And so the long, slow exhale, but here's the key, was sometimes she said, well, if you want to, hold your hand over your heart and focus your emotions on appreciation, gratitude, compassion, love.
Mm-hmm.
Not an image, no pictures, not a person, not an animal, but just the raw compassion, and that fills your heart.
Wow, that's
And
beautiful.
your heart actually has neurons. There is a heart brain. It's been uh, it's, there's scientific proof that
Mm-hmm.
all these neurons in the heart. So the process of okay, so I learned how to shift into the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to go home 5 times a day. I want you to do the breathing for just for 5 minutes. Do the breathing, long, slow exhales, focus on compassion, love, gratitude, appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Do that 5 times a day. What you're doing is you're reprogramming that part of your brain that was traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
and you're feeding that down the vagus nerve to your heart, to your heart brain,
Mm-hmm.
and you're reforming your makeup.
That's wonderful. Yeah, the nervous system is adaptable, and we can. There's neuroplasticity. You can reprogram, and I love this. It's really self-driven. She's giving you some tools, and then it's self-driven, and you're able to use it in your everyday life. So you mentioned there were three types of biofeedback. So that was the second type, right?
The third is electroencephalograph biofeedback, EEG
Okay.
biofeedback, and that takes two computers. And she put wires, certain parts of my scalp to access what's going on in certain parts of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And she sat on her, looking at her computer, and it's giving her feedback on where I'm at,
Okay.
the stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, if I get distracted and start thinking about something, she said, "What are you thinking about?"
Right. Uh-huh.
And
That's
she could
great.
tell. She could
Yeah.
tell I was being distracted going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get back into it. And then there were computer games where you don't touch anything. You just sit there and play a game with your emotions. And the one I did was like a car and
Mm-hmm.
a raceway. And you're doing the same breathing and appreciation, gratitude, and that makes the car go faster.
Ah. Oh, that's cool. So you get that feedback right away. Oh, these feelings that I'm being intentional about are actually creating the car moving faster. It gives you
Yeah.
that immediate positive feedback.
If people have had a therapist, had a psychologist, and you're doing prolonged exposure or cognitive processing, that's talk,
Mm-hmm.
and the feedback is kind of hard to find. But with biofeedback, you're seeing, okay, what I'm doing right now
Mm-hmm.
just changed my my neurological system. I
Yeah,
changed by what I do.
yeah.
That is empowerment right there.
I love that. It is empowerment. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Um, so I wonder. So these services, you would go in and use these different machines, but are people able to take this information and create their own way of creating the feedback, creating biofeedback?
Um,
Or
well,
is that ear heart rate monitor available for people? I wonder.
here's the story with the VA. I worked with the patient council at the mental health, and
Mhm.
we pushed for 3 years. They got the equipment, and they have someone who was trained to use it. And some patients, if they found out about it, because there was a lot of skepticism,
Sure.
okay, and so they didn't. A typical therapist or psychologist may not say, "Hey, you should try biofeedback. I'll make yourself an appointment with Doctor So and So."
Hmm.
It just didn't happen, and over time, it's been dropped.
Oh, goodness. That's really too bad, because it sounds like, that kind of service, particularly for veterans who are suffering so much from PTSD, it's something that you can learn to do. Like we said, it's empowering, it's self driven.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Right?
And you get immediate feedback. You can see it while you're doing it.
Mhm.
And for most people, that's really key. I mean, like you might spend an hour talking to a psychologist and walk out of there and say, well, "What did we talk about?"
Right, right. Especially
That
if
was
you
that.
have PTSD, it's really difficult to remember a lot of things, until you
Yeah, how does
really.
this fit into my whole treatment? We talked about X, Y, and Z,
Mhm.
but your condition is still the same, and you have no way of addressing it other than, okay, what we talked about, and blah
Right,
blah blah.
right. And pharmaceuticals, I would imagine.
Yeah, when I became a patient at the VA, that was the standard thing is give you all the pills in the world. Prozac, they were pushing Prozac. I
Mhm.
took I took. They say, oh, it takes 2 weeks for it to work. I took about a week, and I lost all my creativity,
Oh,
and
gosh.
this is not going to work.
Mhm.
And I ran into a psychologist who was a Vietnam veteran, and he told me that it's the cure. That biofeedback is the cure
Mm.
for PTSD.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's retraining, instead of kind of being stuck in it and masking the symptoms with different drugs. You're actually reteaching yourself to look at it a different way. You mentioned creativity, and I wonder, with the biofeedback being successful for you, did that improve your creativity? Did it improve your spirituality? Tell us about that, about the outcome.
Spirituality. I thought about that since I read your post. Um, I was 21 and in Vietnam, and I knew that my soul had died.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
pronounced my own soul dead. And when I came home, I was like, I took it further, like another soul has like come into me.
Mm.
And I lived like that for 40 years,
Wow.
literally. And when with the trauma that's living inside me was released, it was like a door opened
Mm-hmm.
of spirituality. And this woman who I referred to talked about, who gave me the biofeedback. She didn't take any money.
Mm-hmm.
That gave that filled my spirit right there. That people
Mm-hmm.
cared enough to do that. I think some clinicians pledge 1 hour a week
Mm-hmm.
of a pro bono free service for people in need. I got that deal, and from what she did, I gained some inkling of spirituality
Mm-hmm.
about the world and myself and God, and all this stuff kind of started to reform. When we finished our sessions with the biofeedback and the neurofeedback, she asked me, well, what do you want to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you have reclaimed yourself. And that's when I started volunteering at the VA.
I'm really moved by all of that because, um, I say this all the time, when you let people know that you see them and you hear them and just
Something
display,
opens up.
yeah, just display some compassion. You never know someone's story, right? You never truly know what they feel inside. But when when you do that, very frequently you're saving their life and you don't even know it, and that's spirituality right there.
Yep.
She showed you some compassion, gave you her time,
Really.
you know,
Free compassion.
hmm and gave you her time, which meant that you were valuable enough and deserving of her time and efforts. And,
That was a hell of a thing right there.
mhm. So
When
I'm
someone
so
does
glad for you. And I think I want people to know that there are people out there who will do that. And I hope that as we, lift people up one person at a time, whoever's listening to this, even, they might then just be a little bit more compassionate with the next person they see.
Mhm.
And so it goes.
And how I okay, she told me to go home 5 times a day, breathe,
Mhm.
focus on compassion, uh, and all those things. And so, rather than discontinue doing that your whole life, that'd be boring, wouldn't it? To have
Yeah.
to do that your whole life. I feel people can find an outlet for volunteerism,
Mhm.
serving other people. Um, when you give that way, you often get 5 or 10 times back the
Mhm.
energy that you put out, and that happens to me on a weekly basis. Um, Having that compassion and gratitude and understanding of other people feeds the heart and the vagus.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Yeah,
vagus nerve is so important in all of this. It's the 10th cranial nerve, it's the longest nerve in the body. And by strengthening it, you are reducing your stress levels and healing yourself and
it goes to all
reducing
parts of the body.
anxiety.
It
Hmm.
goes to all parts of the body, and this is your chance by taming the trauma that has ruled that your nervous system, little by little, you can completely change your life.
Mm. Well, on that note, I think we'll end here. Thank you so much for joining me on the Grow podcast. It's been delightful.
Can anxiety, depression, and pain get in the way of spirituality? Any combination of those diagnoses can cause cognitive distortion. And that makes it hard to focus in on any spiritual experience. They also result in some sort of emotional turmoil. And those emotions can be overwhelming, which makes it difficult to find any space to have any sort of spiritual connection. And especially with pain, it can be absolutely physically draining to experience the pain very often. And if you're drained, you don't have capacity to connect spiritually. Many times when you suffer with any of those conditions, you tend to want to isolate yourself. And when you're in isolation, you tend to reduce the amount of access that you have to opportunities to grow spiritually. Ironically enough, the top reasons why people tend to use cannabis medicine is for anxiety, depression, and pain. So, what does that say? I would love to know what you think.
Hey there, Wendy Jo, co-host of the Grow podcast. Also, Wendy Edge, occupational therapist. And I wanted to tell you about my new business where I'm combining the principles of occupational therapy, coaching, and spirituality, and wellness, of course. On the website, you'll see that I'm doing Osho Zen card readings, spiritual coaching, spirit paintings, and so much more. So if you want, check it out, edgecoachingandconsulting.com.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The High Align Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
And we're back. It was a great chat with Jim Hale and his experiences. I'm so glad he found ways to relieve his PTSD symptoms. His PTSD is tough, especially complex PTSD, which is when you experience a trauma repeatedly over a period of time. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's very tough to deal with that and to be functional throughout the day. It takes a little bit more effort and mindfulness to be able to manage that type of trauma because you never know when it's going to get triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And for most people who are living with that reality, it usually is from a fear response. And I love that he decided to take action to find ways to be able to reduce that anxiety as much as possible so he can be more functional.
Absolutely. And then he took it a step further because the person he was working with kept telling him to, put his hands on his heart, get into his heart, and think about gratitude. And so as he was healing, he decided to start doing a lot of volunteer work and helping others. And that's where he, channeled it into. So it definitely is a really positive avenue in his own healing. He's reaching out to others. And I can see that it really has helped him quite a bit.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, I just think anybody who's dealing with any sort of trauma or realize things are just not going in life the way they want it to go, to just explore options like this. And there are plenty of other options because I think it's almost required for us to tap more into our spiritualness, our spirituality, because the more that we have technology supporting us as humans, the more that we need to differentiate ourselves from the robots that are helping us.
Very true. Very true. And the spiritual focus really gives you a new lens. It doesn't mean that all of your symptoms go away magically or that you're never going to be triggered or have anxiety symptoms, but you just have the tools to deal with it and channel into really other positive avenues.
For sure. For sure. I love it.
All right. Well, have a great week, everyone. Bye.